This episode is brought to you by Facebook. So you were scrolling on Marketplace, and there it was, the bike you'd been searching for. You sent a message, and it turned out the seller was super chatty, kind of funny, and an avid cyclist. The next thing you know, you're in a cycling crew. Well, a community cycling group. The thing about Facebook, you might find more than what you're looking for. From a browse to a bike ride, this summer find more on Facebook.
This episode is brought to you by State Farm. Listening to this podcast instead of doom scrolling? Smart move. Another smart move? Getting help from one of State Farm's 19,000 local agents when you choose to bundle home and auto. Bundling, just another way to save with the Personal Price Plan. Prices are based on rating plans that vary by state. Coverage options are selected by the customer. Availability, amount of discounts and savings, and eligibility vary by state.
Want smoother, brighter skin without adding another complicated step to your routine? Try Daily Microfoliant from Dermalogica. This exfoliating powder activates with water to gently polish away dull, flaky skin, leaving it feeling smoother and looking brighter. It's gentle enough to use every day, so keeping your skin looking healthy and fresh is easy. Ready to see the difference? Visit Dermalogica.com and use code SMOOTH at cart for an exclusive gift with your $65 purchase.
Welcome back to DOCUFILES. I'm Paige.
And I'm Natalie.
Next week's episode, we will be covering A Child of My Own on Netflix. This documentary is a wild ride, and I will definitely be looking forward to discussing it next week. This episode, of course, is devoted to the documentary Sweet Bobby, My Catfish Nightmare. Now, you know Natalie and I love a catfish story, so keep sending them if you think we can't help ourselves. And if you think that there are any documentaries or even catfish stories that we may have missed that are out there, please give us a comment on YouTube. We are releasing full-length videos on YouTube now, as many of you know, so go check that out. So you can leave us a comment there, or if you're listening on Spotify, leave us a comment.
And if you have your own catfish story, I am nosy and want to know it. So write into us, email us, get in touch with us somehow. I would love to hear it, and with your permission, even share it.
Yeah, there's a contact form on the murderdiariespodcast.com where you can, let us know your stories. Maybe we can devote a whole episode to that if we get enough. Anyways, this particular story is really sad because of catfish stories. And I know I said we love them, but it's more so that they interest us. We know and respect, of course, that these are people's real lives that were messed with and affected. Their real emotions are at play here. And in this case, it's one of the longest standing catfish stories that I have heard. This spans years. And it breaks my heart for Kirat, who is the individual that the catfishing happens to, because it basically wasted her entire 30s. Now, we are responsible for our own actions and reactions to things, but this person toyed with everything going on in her life and her emotions and her well-being for years and years and years. Again, almost her entire 30s.
When Paige says this is the longest running catfish that she's heard of, she's not exaggerating. This was a relationship that spanned over 9 years, so almost a decade. And when you were listing all the things that it affected, it also affected her fertility. As we learn towards the end of the documentary, she really, really wanted to be a mom, and she didn't want to be wasting her time on somebody that wasn't serious, but she felt like this was someone who she could spend the rest of her life with, who could father her children. And when she found out that Bobby wasn't who he said he was, she lost a lot of things, including, like you said, her time and possibly the opportunity to be a mom.
We can't talk about this case and understand it well enough without discussing that Kirat comes from a Punjabi Sikh culture that is based in Kenya. So it's a South Asian community that is in Kenya. Her own parents were actually born in Kenya before the family became based in the UK. With that in mind, Kirat refers to people who aren't technically like blood-related cousins, cousin, auntie, uncle. This is a tight-knit community. Not only would being Punjabi tie people together, but this is such a specific group of Punjabi Sikh individuals that come from an area of Kenya that, again, it just created that tight-knit cousin, auntie, uncle based trust and community. I mean, there's nothing better than you could call it than community support. These are people whose weddings you're going to, birthdays you're going to. This is your family and extended family. With that, Kirat had a lot of trust in any of these people that she was turning to. And in this case, even on Reddit, they're questioning if one of the other main characters in this, Simran, is technically blood related or not. And Reddit is leaning on, no, this is just more of that like family friend tightness. And this comes from, there's a podcast, did you know, Natalie, about this case. And it comes from some quotes and things that her father has said and inferences that come from that make it feel like, okay, this is just like an inner circle tie, but it's not somebody that, you know, like is an actual blood related cousin per se. But still, there was that trust. And a lot of people also are saying, well, they call her cousin in the documentary because she's so much younger than Kirat. So why is Kirat listening to who more towards the beginning of the Catfish saga, more towards 2011, Simran is a teenager dating this guy, JJ, who has a brother named Bobby that ends up Facebook friend requesting Kirat. And so people are kind of like, yeah, they use that so that like people don't question so much. Why is Kirat, you know, speaking with and like kind of having ties with in that regard a teenager? To a certain extent, I get it. It doesn't matter how young that person is. It's still going to make you feel comfortable. Like, okay, here's Simran, but she's not alone as a teenager. She has parents that Kirat probably, you know, sees as auntie, uncle. And if they're allowing her to be involved with this family, why would she deny this friend request from Bobby?
I'm so glad you're bringing up this part of the questions that we have after watching the documentary, because that was one thing that was very unclear to me as a viewer, was how are Simran and Kirat related? And I think that by leaving it vague, the documentary makers basically say it doesn't matter how they're related. They have a familial tie somehow, whether it is socially, whether it's biologically. But to me, it matters. I think it matters because if they are blood related, that affects the entire family. Like, obviously, it affects the community and the social group some way. But if it is your literal biological cousin and they have done this to you for 9 years, that affects the parents' relationships, that affects grandparents' relationships. You know what I mean? Like, it would split a family apart. And so the fact that they didn't bring it up makes me think that, okay, they must not be blood related.
There's this thread on Reddit that I mentioned a few minutes ago that discusses this. And one of the posts has a quote straight from Kirat that says, she's not a close cousin to start with. So for me, she was never a close cousin to start with. She's so much younger than me. She's from the extended family, but I'm very much a family person. I think out of most of my cousins, I'm the one who goes to events where most cousins don't turn up. And then she just goes on to explain that even when these other cousins don't go, she still goes and she makes it a point to keep these connections. And a lot of it, she says, is her heritage. And she's even been the one that does the family tree. She's a person in her family that is very much into that. So these connections are important to her. She does pour into people of all ages that are extended. I saw another post state that she shares cousins with Simran, but it's different, which I kind of get
She's
that
like
vibe.
A cousin-in-law or a cousin outlaw, you know, like.
Yeah. And I get that connection because there's been cousins of my cousins that I've met and that sort of felt like family, or aunts of my cousins that feel like family in one way or another, but they're not, you know, it just depends on who's showing up, right? Anyways, I just think that that's a very important piece to this because it's so easy to question things if in your life, maybe you come from a smaller family, or this isn't, you're more like Kirat's cousins that are like, I'm not going to that. And that's totally valid and fine. This is just who Kirat is, and I can relate because it's kind of how I am. So totally get. And I think, again, it's just an important piece to understanding the story better. When Simran's dating JJ, again, the younger brother of Bobby, she wouldn't have questioned it for 5 seconds why Bobby would have even been requesting friendship on Facebook. And at the time, he was married and she had a boyfriend who was an on and off boyfriend for years since they were 18.
Let's talk about that because that was more of a red flag for me when watching and hearing how it sort of unfolded, this meeting and building of the relationship between Bobby and Kirat. I thought it was interesting that he was married, reaching out to her. And even though it was friendly and not flirty in any way, I was surprised that she would accept the attention from a married man. And I'm surprised that she would willingly give attention when she was in a relationship. But we also have to say, like you said, it was on and off. I feel like that would have been a red flag for me from the beginning. This is a married man. Like, I don't care if you're like the funniest person ever. It just seems odd to me.
Yeah, if you're not also friends with the wife and you've never met them, to me, yeah, it would feel a little odd. I think she just took the connection for what it was. To your point, I don't think that would necessarily help any of the struggles she was likely having in said relationship since she was 18. Could have been an off moment and she could have just been like, okay, cool, he's married. Like, he's not hitting on me. I'm not worried about it. And it did actually stay at a friendship level for quite a while, but then he gets a divorce. Now, she's still with her boyfriend at this time, or at least off and on, for another probably 2 to 3 years.
But here's the thing. When he gets divorced, you can tell she's sort of sad for him, but there's a little bit of a excitement to the fact that he's single now. Enough excitement that when he goes offline for a while and returns, she is crushed when she learns that he is dating someone else and now engaged.
Yes, he's engaged to this woman named Sanj, and she's drop dead gorgeous, and he wants her to get to know Sanj. So Sanj requests friendship, and then there are 3 more characters, because we know this is Catfish, where there's like a cousin, the cousin's brother, I think, and then a sister who actually wasn't a real true sister. Because a lot of this stays a bit true to Bobby's life because Simran did date his brother. But this sister that she did actually get pretty close with, I think was a manipulative tool. And that really ticked me off when I was learning how she wasn't an actual, he didn't have a sister. Not with that name, nothing. She was created as a friend that Kirat could turn to. And I think you're right. It did seem like she was maybe a bit sad, but she is reminiscing on this as a decent time in her life. And she just took that for what it was and befriended these people.
And like you said at the beginning, she didn't suspect anything because she knows Bobby exists. Not only because Simran is dating his younger brother, but because she actually bumped into him about 4 months into them talking online. It turns out that, we've, set up for you guys, It turns out that, as we've mentioned, the community she's a part of is very small in West London. And she happened to be out at a club one evening when she bumps into Bobby in the flesh. And she has this moment where she is shocked because this is a person that she's been talking to online for months. They finally meet in person and he seems to not know who she is, but he's also very drunk, and she sort of takes that into consideration and doesn't pursue a conversation with him beyond that. And she never brings it up with him until years later.
I really loved how the documentary almost all but opened up with that scene because it immediately gets you questioning, does he even really know her? But he's real and she's already seen him. This is wild. As Nellie said, this took place in a club in a town called Brighton. It's about an hour from London, and Brighton actually is an important place. So I see why the documentary all but opens up with this scene and flashes Brighton in big, bright lights, because this is where the real Bobby lives. And this is the scene where we learn that he's real. And it immediately gets you questioning what is going on here. This club visit, by the way, explains why she was in Brighton an hour away from where she lived. And that's because it was part of a hen party, or what we call a bachelorette party. Anyways, it's probably part of the reason why she brushes it off too. Like, oh, it was random. We had all been drinking. And you just start to question yourself. I mean, again, she's literally looking at him in the flesh. Like, what does she have to question? And at this point, there wasn't particularly anything romantic because this is still right around 2011.
That's what makes this catfishing story so different than the other ones we have covered on the podcast. Bobby was real. Bobby was a real person. She's seen him in the flesh. He has relationships to people in her community, and everything about his life that she's learned is based in reality. He was married, gets divorced. He ends up in another marriage to Sanj. She's real. And who is she to question someone that she has gotten close to and learned so much about that feels real and is real? You know what I mean? Like, why would she question it?
It would feel a little odd. Somebody who you're not romantically involved with, you see them in a club, you would feel odd questioning the next day, like, hey, I saw you last night. That was a little odd. Like, was everything okay? Like, you wouldn't really do that. And then to point out again, it was just a few months into them chatting, like you so helpfully mentioned. So it was just one of those things she just kind of had to brush it off, and it didn't matter. Once she breaks up with her boyfriend in 2014, and the way she states it is that he just got cold feet when it got closer and closer and closer to marriage being one of those things where you kind of have to shit or get off the pot. Mm-hmm. And the boyfriend chose to get off the pot while wasting so much of her time from 18 to 35 years old. She mentioned he might even disappear for like a year and then pop back up. And she's a very loyal person and she would go back to him. And I think that also plays into what was happening with Bobby.
Going to say the same thing. Mm-hmm. The fact that she had this experience in her relationship history with an individual who was so inconsistent and so like unsensitive toward or unempathetic towards her feelings and how they treated her. It's not a surprise that when Bobby wasn't being a good partner online as they're building this relationship, she didn't run. It's because she was used to being treated poorly in her previous relationship, and she had no other relationship to base off of what was normal and what wasn't.
Kirat's mom is so cute, and she wants everybody watching this documentary to know that Kirat had a number of proposals after she finished university, but she was not into any of them and remained loyal to that boyfriend we've been talking about. Call me basic, but I'm an autumn girl through and through. And as this summer winds down, it's got me thinking about all these little things that make the home feel a little more comfortable and welcoming and cozy. That's exactly what Quince does so well. They make it so easy to upgrade the spaces that you use every day with quality home essentials made from premium materials without paying any of those luxury prices. Quince has those pieces that quietly elevate your home, from plush Turkish cotton bath towels and breathable cotton and linen bedding. Everything from Quince is made with premium materials and thoughtful craftsmanship. That's because Quince works directly with ethical factories and cuts out the middleman. That way they can offer exceptional quality at prices that are 50 to 80% less than similar luxury brands. I've been sleeping on European linen sheets from Quince's home goods line for a year now, and let me tell you, they are cozy, they are breathable. I have no notes. They also just sent me their cotton fisherman's throw in the color fig. It is so pretty and also very cozy, most importantly. Elevate your everyday at home. Download the Quince app for app-exclusive offers or go to quince.com/diaries. Get free shipping on your order and 365-day returns. Now available in Canada and the UK too. That's QUINCE.com/diaries.
This episode is brought to you by Facebook. So you were scrolling on Marketplace, and there it was, the bike you'd been searching for. You sent a message, and it turned out the seller was super chatty, kind of funny, and an avid cyclist. The next thing you know, you're in a cycling crew. Well, a community cycling group. The thing about Facebook, you might find more than what you're looking for. From a browse to a bike ride, this summer find more on Facebook.
This episode is brought to you by State Farm. Listening to this podcast instead of doom scrolling? Smart move. Another smart move? Getting help from one of State Farm's 19,000 local agents when you choose to bundle home and auto. Bundling, just another way to save with the Personal Price Plan. Prices are based on rating plans that vary by state. Coverage options are selected by the customer. Availability, amount of discounts and savings, and eligibility vary by state.
Want smoother, brighter skin without adding another complicated step to your routine? Try Daily Microfoliant from Dermalogica. This exfoliating powder activates with water to gently polish away dull, flaky skin, leaving it feeling smoother and looking brighter. It's gentle enough to use every day, so keeping your skin looking healthy and fresh is easy. Ready to see the difference? Visit Dermalogica.com and use code SMOOTH at cart for an exclusive gift with your $65 purchase.
This episode is brought to you by Welch's Fruit Snacks. Back to school season can be tough on parents, but choosing a snack you and your kids can both get behind doesn't have to be. Stock up on Welch's Fruit Snacks, made with whole fruit, and now made with no artificial dyes. It's a snack kids already love, and one you can feel good about giving them. Go back to school with Welch's Fruit Snacks, now made with no artificial dyes.
It was heartbreaking to hear her mom say, in reference to this early relationship that Kirat had with her first boyfriend, that they had plans together. They had plans together. They had a future that they were planning. And it must have been so heartbreaking for Kirat, but the whole family, to see her go through this, wanting something so desperately, holding on to this person who just doesn't want to be there for whatever reason. And I think that's what Simran was hoping to capitalize on by her weird psychological torture that she put Kirat through, because she saw someone that so desperately wanted to be loved. She saw someone who so desperately wanted to be a mom and who wanted to move on and experience these life milestones. And she really manipulated that.
Being unmarried put Kirat literally at the children's table at more than one wedding, and that was devastating. I don't think for 2 seconds if Simran was attending any of those weddings, which is highly likely, she would have understood through Punjabi culture what that meant to Kirat.
And there's a conversation that does pop up, and I do want to acknowledge that some of the text conversations that show up in the documentary are recreated based off of Kirat's memory, or, they're not word for word, but there is a conversation that she has with Bobby about that exact thing, about having to be seated at the children's table. And she says something along the lines of, until I'm married, I will always be considered a child.
Yeah. And he says they're wrong, or you're wrong. Something to that effect of, you're not a child. You know what I mean? Like he's trying to encourage her. And that's what's just so wild sometimes with these catfish stories, is that when they're going through something hard, this catfish is right there, quote, for them. But we know that it's just a bunch of emotional manipulation.
That's what's creepy too, though. It's like she wanted, for whatever reason, to get inside Kirat's head so desperately that she created this complete fantasy world for nearly a decade. And like a lot of people, when you watch a documentary about catfishing, and this one in particular, there have been articles that popped up and people in the comments will say, well, what was she thinking? Well, in terms of like, what was Kirat thinking? How could she have fallen for this? But my real question is, what was Simran thinking? It is so wild how controlling she was over this whole situation. And it is kind of terrifying to know that there's someone out there willing to do this.
Yeah. Somebody that close within your life too, that you call them a cousin. Now, as we know, things do eventually turn romantic because Bobby gets a divorce from Sanj. But before that divorce happens, he has a trip to Kenya. Again, this is a Punjabi community that has ties to Kenya. Sanj, while he's there, creates a post on Facebook that says, remember, Kirat's following him. Nope. Remember, Kirat and Sanj are friends on Facebook. Anyways, Sanj posts that Bobby has been shot 6 times. And you go, wow, that must have got a woman in her 30s going, wait a minute, what? But Kirat discusses that this isn't completely off the wall to have happened. They know people who have been shot or murdered when visiting Kenya. Bobby apparently comes from a very well-known family. So I think that also would have been another reason why Kirat isn't like super worried about things like running into him in a club and him acting a little off or things like that, just because it was just very much validated who he was, right? So this also didn't cause any reason for her to question anything. But the most pivotal point of this drama going on, because it didn't really happen, is that it puts Bobby in the witness protection program because Interpol gets involved. If Interpol's getting involved, these are the types of things clearly that the world is aware of. With the idea of Simran faking that Interpol's getting involved and putting him in witness protection, that's how serious and how common those types of things apparently were in Kenya. Because, I mean, again, we're talking about Interpol. And like, how does a young person like Simran even know? It's because these things actually were happening. So I just really want to stress there, because it is mind-blowing, where you just go, how would you not have questioned that? Because it actually was something that happened, and his family was very wealthy and well known.
He not only gets put into witness protection, but he's moved to New York. So he is across the pond. He's miles and miles away from Kirat. She doesn't have easy access to him because they're not local to one another anymore, and the fact that he's also in witness protection. But he does reach out to her on Facebook while in witness protection, and she questions how he's even allowed to talk to her. And he tells her that he's been given permission by the higher ups to communicate with a certain number of people, and she's among the few that have been cleared for him, basically. And it's not long before he starts experiencing severe health crises. And she finds out from one of their mutual friends that a bunch of family members are recording audio to be played to Bobby. And it's requested that she send one in as well, which airs in the documentary. We hear her tear-filled. And this is the first time that she expresses having a romantic feeling towards him. She says, "I love you." She is clearly crying in the audio. And it's heartbreaking to think that she really thought this person she loved was about to die. And this was the first time she was able to garner the courage to express her love for him. And so she put herself on the line, and it turns out that it was just someone wanting to see what she would say. You know what I mean?
Yeah, they were sort of playing around, like, let me see what I can get her to do. What pictures can I get her to do? There's even a moment where she discusses that she would lay on her bedroom floor or fall asleep to Skype calls where her video was on, and it was just Bobby. And because of these health issues, specifically a stroke, that he couldn't really talk anymore, and he would communicate through like grunts and other sounds, and the camera was never on. And that's because it wasn't Bobby. But Kirat doesn't realize this until eventually, just after years of all of this and growing exhausted. I mean, wearing a shirt that Simran just happens to get from him while she's in New York and brings back for her. Again, just years of this emotional manipulation. She starts to get increasingly suspicious. She does finally start questioning little bits. Not entirely, because the whole time she basically does think it's him, but she's trying to understand more so why. Why is he, for example, in London and he won't let me see him? Mm-hmm. What is going on here? He's lying to me about something. As opposed to I'm being lied to about who this is, it was he's lying to me about something. So she hired a private investigator. And throughout like 2017, 2018, this is when that finally happens. And it leads her to his house in Brighton. So again, it makes so much sense why he may have been at that club in Brighton 7 years earlier than when the private investigator was hired.
It's important to note, too, that in between him being in witness protection in New York, having a stroke, and him coming to London, they, like you said, they connect until they eventually get engaged. And they are starting to plan this upcoming wedding, even though they have never actually met in person, besides that one time at the club. And so when she hires that private investigator, she's under the impression that her fiance is in London after however many years of talking and does not want to see her. So she's thinking, this is the man that has promised to love me for the rest of my life, we've planned on having children together. We've weathered a number of storms, including him having leapt with Sanj having a child out of that, like, one night stand, I guess, or, that, what would we want to call that? When him and Sanj.
It basically was played off that he had a quick reconnection with Sanj after their divorce and that she was now having a baby.
Mm-hmm.
That was Bobby's. Kirat and Bobby were picking clothes out for the baby. Sanj would send pictures of the baby in
the
those
clothes,
which is absolutely wild. But when we break it down, of course, the cousin Simran, who we discover was orchestrating all of this, was able to look at pictures, find the clothing items.
Yeah, reverse search it.
Yeah, and just finding it. I mean, they were recent purchases, so not all of that would prove super difficult. And she could probably sway which way, the clothing purchase should go. Or picked probably a couple that she knew she could find and let Kirat pick one and then sent her that picture of the baby in it. But all that to say Kirat was forming a life with Bobby, engaged, like you mentioned, ready to be a stepmother to his child. Seemingly, Sanj was understanding that this was going on, but she was very upset, of course, that this happened. They went through that whole moment, but they came back together with it, and she was willing to forgive and move forward because she loved him. And so when that moment came, when he was in London and wouldn't see her, of course, it's going to drive her crazy and decide that like something major is going on. And she wasn't wrong. Like there was something going wrong. So I say drive her crazy, not in that the negative connotation, but in the connotation of...
Yeah, we know what you meant. Like it just was so... There was the moment she put her foot down and said, no, you're going to see me.
She was done.
She's done. What I mean. Yeah, she was done. And she eventually finds out that he was never at the hotel that he said he was at. She does get the address for the home that he was staying at.
His home that he owned with Sanj.
And well, she even found Sanj's parents' address and happens to drive by at the same time that Sanj leaves the house. And she says in the documentary that she was so overcome with emotion and anger and just uncontrolled feelings about everything going on that she thought about putting her foot to the gas and running over Sanj, but she didn't. This just shows like she was literally at her breaking point.
And that's why she ends up driving out to the house in Brighton. And when she shows up, it's Bobby, it's Sanj, it's their child. And to her, in the beginning, she decides, I'm going to confront. So she does. And it seems as though Bobby was just lying the whole time that he never divorced Sanj. That does seem more realistic, doesn't it? Right? I've got this Facebook relationship for years. Sanj doesn't really know that I still talk to her. But when she starts talking about their names, their child's name, they're
freaked out.
They called the police and then they finally... Hold on. Okay. Then, and we don't really know exactly how. The documentary doesn't explain it too well. They do come to find out that, yeah, I know Simran, but like, I don't know you. And Simran dated my little brother, but
like years ago. Like,
yeah.
This is someone that I'm not in contact with anymore. At least that's how Bobby explains it.
Exactly. And she was years younger than the two of them, Kirat and Bobby. So, like, of course, he's not keeping in touch with her in that regard. But again, we don't totally understand how, but they come to understand, wait, this actually is happening. Somebody is pretending to be me. And that's really creepy. So at first, they do think that Kirat is just kind of crazed and unstable and
possibly a stalker.
A stalker. But I wish they did explain more in the documentary because that would have been interesting to me because it would take a lot from Bobby and Sanj to be willing to hear all of that out. Perhaps that came from the police because I'm sure the police came to visit her and were like, well, why are you over there? You're not welcome there. And she explained everything. Maybe they gave that information to him. They don't explain it.
Bobby's interaction with Simran over the phone is a little telling. And I think that was sort of what helped him realize, okay, something's going on. Because when Kirat is standing at Bobby's door and she explains, well, my cousin Kirat, they get her on the phone and Kirat talks to Bobby and Kirat tells Bobby, oh, she's confused. Don't worry, just tell her to leave. They start realizing Kirat is more involved than we realize. And I think that was a red flag for them. Maybe it didn't really answer all of their questions, but it started getting the ball rolling of, okay, there is deception happening here. What I picked up from
Or that
the docu.
Simran was more involved than...
Who did I say?
I heard Kirat.
But I meant Simran for those listening. You knew what I meant.
Yeah, totally knew what you meant. And I do agree that phone call was more of a catalyst of finally starting to understand that something else was going on and that Kirat wasn't a stalker or stalking them. In fact, it kind of took a lot for her to decide to finally go out there. She didn't really know by the time she was driving. She didn't really know what she was driving for. She just knew she was going out there. She didn't know what she was going to get out of it. She didn't know if they were home. They just happened to be. And I can't imagine what this entire situation took out of her and it took away from her.
There was a lot taken away from her. And there was a lot of victim blaming happening even at this stage in her catfishing story. When she does eventually go to the police to let them know what happened with Simran and Bobby, she's told basically, you're not a victim. Bobby and Sanj are victims. You're not. You fell for this and sorry, there's not much we can do. And she has to push back and say, no, Bobby, or the person I thought to be Bobby, and I had romantic conversations. We planned a life together. I did not consent to having these conversations with Simran. And she has to say, like, I am a victim. I was tricked beyond belief, having exposed myself, taking pictures in shirts, sending them, laying in front of the camera on Zoom or whatever she used. She was a complete victim to Simran's machinations.
She absolutely was. And I think luckily today, anybody watching that documentary or listening to the podcast would agree.
There's an article with BBC that features Kirat, and she says that telling her story has prompted others to ask the question, how can somebody fall for this? It's prompted abuse from people online. And she says, for people who might still think I'm stupid, that's fine. You're allowed your opinion. But she goes on to say that people shouldn't make assumptions because those assumptions are partly why she has decided to share her story. She says, I'm not stupid. I'm not dumb. I'm the one that's chosen to speak. I'm the one that's put myself out in the firing line, and I hope others will come forward because she wants people to see that, especially in this community, this sort of thing does happen and you have to talk about it. People have to be aware because if you aren't privy to this sort of thing happening, it's going to keep happening to more and more people. She continues, we are so scared to open up about these issues because of how a community will be seen by wider society. The victims in our communities keep suffering. And she goes on to say that her dad's reaction to her story is really a good example of what she's talking about. She says he doesn't want to know what happened because to face up to what happened and how horrific it was, it's going to be painful. I love my dad and I know my dad loves me. It's a different set of values that he has been brought up with. And so she really just wants people to understand that it's okay to talk about things that are hard and a little bit messy.
Until our next episode, make sure to follow us on all of our socials at The Murder Diaries Pod. Subscribe on YouTube at The Murder Diaries Podcast.
And our schedule is Mondays, Tragic Hollywood, which is on YouTube now. Tuesdays, DOCUFILES, and Thursdays, a true crime case that needs your attention. Thanks for being here.
Bye.
Bye.
Call me basic, but I'm an autumn girl through and through. And as this summer winds down, it's got me thinking about all these little things that make the home feel a little more comfortable and welcoming and cozy. That's exactly what Quince does so well. They make it so easy to upgrade the spaces that you use every day with quality home essentials made from premium materials without paying any of those luxury prices. Quince has those pieces that quietly elevate your home, from plush Turkish cotton bath towels and breathable cotton and linen bedding. Everything from Quince is made with premium materials and thoughtful craftsmanship. That's because Quince works directly with ethical factories and cuts out the middleman. That way they can offer exceptional quality at prices that are 50 to 80% less than similar luxury brands. I've been sleeping on European linen sheets from Quince's home goods line for a year now, and let me tell you, they are cozy, they are breathable. I have no notes. They also just sent me their cotton fisherman's throw in the color fig. It is so pretty and Also, very cozy, most importantly. Elevate your everyday at home. Download the Quince app for app-exclusive offers or go to quince.com/diaries. Get free shipping on your order and 365-day returns. Now available in Canada and the UK too. That's QUINCE.com/diaries.
Close your eyes, exhale, feel your body relax, and let go of whatever you're carrying today.
Well, I'm letting go of the worry that I wouldn't get my new contacts in time for this class. I got them delivered free from 1-800-CONTACTS. Oh my gosh, they're so fast.
And breathe.
Oh, sorry. I almost couldn't breathe when I saw the discount they gave me on my first order. Oh, sorry. Namaste.
Visit 1-800-CONTACTS.com today to save on your first order.
1-800-CONTACTS.
I see you.
Avatar: Fire and Ash is now streaming on Disney+. It's the film critics are calling the best Avatar yet.
Yeah! Go, 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 go!
A true epic and completely jaw-dropping.
This is the only pure thing in this world.
Return to Pandora on Disney+.
It will be an adventure for the whole family.
And watch the Oscar-winning phenomenon at home.
This is sick!
Avatar: Fire and Ash, now streaming on Disney+. Rated PG-13.
Cozy season is ahead, and you'll be spending way more time inside. Is your home ready? Don't worry. With Wayfair, you can upgrade your space without breaking the bank. Score up to 70% off during their Labor Day clearance on furniture, area rugs, mattresses, and more. Plus, surprise flash deals you can't miss. Whether it's one room or the whole house, Wayfair has pieces for every style and budget.
Shop Wayfair's Labor Day clearance now through September 7th at wayfair.com.
Wayfair, every style, every home.
At ZocDoc, we know being a healthy adult is like living in a video game. Every day has side quests, taxes, laundry, birthdays, and just when you're leveling up, you have to book a doctor. The insurance portal crashes, they put you on hold, your doctor doesn't take your plan, game over. We see you, so we made booking a doctor easy. Download ZocDoc, search by specialty, insurance, and availability. Book instantly, no cheat codes required. Find a doctor you love with ZocDoc.